Namaste, everyone. I'm creating a little video for day 2 of our program, our 5-day challenge from chaos to calm. And today we're going to be focusing on connection. And I just want to do a really quick review of the triangle, our ABC triangle of awareness, breath, and connection, because we're going to be connecting all 3 of these today, but I'm going to focus specifically in this video more on connection, our awareness of the connections that we have. So I just want to review that super fast for all of you. When we talked about awareness, we talked about this idea of how our thoughts create our emotions, and from that we move into a state of being. And that's going to be a really important thing when we start looking at our relationships. That's the focus of our day today, is on relationship. But we have to do that through the lens of awareness. So I'd like to show you just a couple of slides and then maybe get off the PowerPoint. Basically, the idea is that the thoughts that we think about are what bring about our emotional state. And, you know, they tell us that 80% of the things we're thinking are the same thing over and over and over again. We just keep thinking the same thoughts over and over. We're not having a lot of new thoughts. That's just part of the activity of the brain. And unfortunately, the brain has a bias to look for what's wrong in the world. They call it a negative bias, but it just is like we scan the environment and see, oh, this doesn't really fit within my framework of what I think to be the right and perfect life that I want. So if we look at how we're operating, and again, this is at the level of the unconscious, but we're able to bring it up into our conscious awareness. So our thoughts then become the precursor for the emotional field that's going on inside us. And we saw this yesterday when we looked at the serene mind practice, how we could see how the thoughts, the movement of the thoughts, either from the past where we're holding a regret, so we're angry about something that happened, causes an internal emotion, or we're worried about the future. We have a worry about something. We're afraid of something. We've created some chaotic image about what something's going to happen in the future. And that's causing a disturbance for us. Or blessed be, we're feeling just very peaceful and calm in the present moment. At any rate, those thoughts then create this emotional field for us. And what we're told is that then these emotions become, I won't say really crystallized, but they become kind of, I think of it like a swarm of emotions that create a temperament within us. And our temperament then becomes the way we respond or react in all of our relationships. So I wanted to look a little bit more at what is a temperament? What is temperament? A temperament, the dictionary talks about temperament and says temperament's a person or an animal's nature, especially as it permanently affects their behavior. So this quality of our temperament, and we know people that have a particular temperament. Like you know somebody who's just kind of runs a mad on all the time. Somebody who's got kind of an angry temperament. Or the other side, somebody who's pretty pleasant to be around, somebody that you want to be around. You feel like their temperament is something that you enjoy. So I want you to begin to notice this in your own life. And as we kind of move through the rest of the days together, to become more aware of this, this quality of temperament, which again is coming out of this pathway of thoughts to emotions, definitely influences our moment-to-moment state of being. And so one of the things I would just ask you to take a look at is, do you have an overall quality of being, an overall kind of state of being, an overall temperament that kind of runs through your life most of the time? And then do you have these moment-to-moment states that pop in and out, reactive states? You might have a particular thing that you get fired up about, or that you move into a place of contraction about, reactive to what's going on in the outer. Or is there a capacity for you when something's going on in the outer to actually pull from that state and be in a responsive way rather than being reactive? So just take a look at that. I think it's a really, it's a beautiful teaching. And this again is the teaching that oneness has given us over time. So I want to just go back a little bit to the whole idea of the connection we have in relationships. If we remember the video that hopefully many of you have had a chance to see, Krishnaji's video about the law of chaos and order. The second point he makes, beyond first that our state really is what's determining whether we're living in a place of chaos in the outer or whether there's a place of order. And again, I call that a sense of calm, peace, clarity, focus. The second thing he says is, are we focused on ourselves? Is our energy all self-obsessed, focused on ourselves? Or are we able to be part of a larger community, focus on the larger part of humanity, not only just ourselves, but those around us? So this is an important thing, I think, for us to begin to look at. And as we really begin to kind of narrow down a little bit today in terms of our closest relationships. And so I want you to reflect on this. Are you mostly focused on yourself? And, you know, I hear a lot of people talking about getting their needs met and how they need to interact in a relationship to get their needs met. Or another thing is to say, I need to speak my truth. Just to be really clear, what is the state of consciousness? What is the state of being that we're coming from when we have this kind of, we take this posture of needing to get my needs met. I need to get my needs met, or I need to speak my truth. Notice how that very kind of, I'm calling it a posture because it feels like that to me, how that automatically sets up a conflict inside of us. And it sets up a conflict inside of our close relationships too, because clearly if we say, I need to get my needs met, there's something inside of me saying, I'm not getting my needs met. So there's this sense of, there's like an opposition going on. The same thing about speaking my truth. It's a similar kind of thing. If I'm speaking my truth, it's because I'm not feeling heard. There's something inside me that's feeling conflicted. So there's an inner conflict going on there. And you know, one of the things that I've so loved about this book, The Four Sacred Secrets, is this whole understanding about the inner conflict that we carry around. There's so many ways that we're very subtly in a conflicted mind. So I just wanted to point out a few things, and I have it on the slide here, this idea of when we're feeling in a conflicted way in a relationship, often one of the first things that happens is we feel hurt and we run into judgment. We move into that judgment, and that again pulls us even more farther apart from the other in the relationship, and more about, it's all about me. We become defensive, we defend our position, we become controlling because we want to control what's around. We need to prove ourselves right, we need to prove the other person wrong. And finally, we get to play the ego games. Now, for those of you who have been around oneness for a while, you'll know that ego games was something that was part of the teaching maybe 10 years ago, when we first started doing work with Amma Bhagwan. They shared about how the mind loves to play ego games. Well, I'm not going to go into all the ego games here in my little video because I want this to be really short with you, but I did put a deeper description of the ego games in the file that I have for you, it's under all the resources. There's a file and you can download it. Basically, the ego games cause us to lose energy. They cause us to lose energy because of the way we get into conflict. The ego's in conflict, and so it puts us in conflict with other people, and we lose energy. We're not clear, we're not focused, we're not coming from that beautiful state of calm consciousness. It also, clearly, when we get into ego games, it can cause us to really create a lot of conflict in our relationships. It also puts us in a place where because we've taken these postures and positions, we aren't able to easily forgive ourselves or other people. We hold on to things. When the ego is playing these games, again, it's mind games that the ego is playing. We hold on to these things. And not only do we hold on to our own position in a really rigid way, we hold on to the hurt that has happened to us as a result of somebody else not agreeing with us, not taking that same position. So I'm just going to mention the ego games, and then I'm going to let you take a look at them yourself, and we'll focus a little bit on this tomorrow. Domination is one to control. I think I don't know, I've been a control freak in my life in so many ways. Probably one of the reasons I divorced my second husband was because of that. Refusing to be dominated. Another thing, sort of the passive aggressive stance, is another way to control another person and a situation. And again, you feel the conflict in that, refusing to be dominated or being the dominator. Taking the stand that I'm right, and what's the flip of that is, if I'm right all the time, you're wrong. The fifth one is this idea of our need to survive by holding on to a particular idea, position, kind of way of being that the ego identifies with. And we hold on to that ideology, that belief system, and we feel if anybody threatens it, that it's a threat to us literally, almost physically. You can see that, how that's playing out in our culture right now. It's part of the chaos that's there. And finally, the other one is the cover up, which is one of my kind of personal favorites. That's where we use some sort of philosophy or some sort of excuse to say that, oh, well, this doesn't really matter. It's all in divine order that this is happening. And, it's nobody's fault. It's not my fault. But we still hold on to that divided, conflicted posture. Anyway, all these things are really, really fun to take a look at and to see kind of how they show up in your life. And again, whenever we're in this place of conflicted inner state that for many of us shows up in the outer, the best thing we can do is we can use that powerful triangle that we have been gifted with to be able to move ourselves back into a place of calm, presence, and peace. So part of it is being aware when we're playing an ego game. When we find ourselves kind of rearing up to defend ourselves, immediately you've moved into a self-centered obsession. It doesn't mean that what you're thinking doesn't have a lot of validity, but it's the kind of the posture that we take around it that shifts the relationship and the energy in the relationship, and also pulls us, excuse me, way off center. So awareness is one thing we can do. We can slow down our breathing. Slowing down our breathing is going to be a powerful way for us to reconnect to our center. And also, sharing is paused. Well, I wonder what I did there. Resume share. Sorry about that. I guess it didn't like that thing that I did. Bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 bum. Anyway, I'm just going to assume you guys are fine with that. I was showing the triangle, and hopefully, let's see if I can make it show up one more time, because I think the triangle, it's a good thing for us to be aware of. There we go. This idea that we can have mind awareness, we can have awareness of what's going on in the thoughts, the emotion, the temperament that brings about this state of consciousness. We can bring it down with the breath is another way. And that, again, not only raises the subtle body energy, but it also allows us to be much more present and to connect with what's going on inside ourselves, with those who are around us, those close relationships we have, and also connecting in with the presence of that greater than ourselves, so that we can use our inner guidance system to be able to know what's the best to say, what's the thing to say, what's the thing to do, what's the right action to take, moment to moment. At any rate, Super happy to be with you day 2. I'm looking forward to it. And I'll be sending out a little breath practice. Don't forget your exercise. 5 minutes, 2 minutes, write a little bit what you saw. And I'm so happy to share this time with you. From chaos to calm. Let's do it together. Love you guys.